I'd like to call the meeting to order. Barbara, would you please call the roll?
We have Commissioners Sales, Moss, Noonan, and Parfait present.
Thank you, Barbara. This proceeding will be on Channel 35, as you all know. I'd like a motion to defer the following items. Items 27, 32, 35, 41, 42, 44, and 47. And also, I'd like to defer item 40, but there will be a presentation on item 40.
43 as well.
And 43.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, those items are deferred.
Sir, I have a card in to speak on item 41.
Well, that item is being deferred.
Does that mean it's being put off to another date?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. It'll probably be taken up at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Report from the general manager.
I have no separate items, particularly in light of a relatively long agenda that you have already.
Comments or requests from commissioners relating to DWD operations? Commissioner Parfait, Commissioner Moss, Commissioner Noonan. No items. Public comment. I believe we have 2 speaker cards for public comment.
Yes, we had 2 cards turned in without a number. The officer is checking with them right now. So they might be number 4.
Public comment. Did we find out?
You see what item number? Yeah, okay, it's item 4. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, then we do have 2 cards for item 4. The first speaker is Roger A. Haring.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Roger A. Herring. I'm an Earth Team volunteer with the Natural Resource Conservation Service. Happy Friday, everybody, and happy Memorial Day. I'm here just to speak on a project that's taking place in Los Angeles County, northeast of the city of Santa Clarita. I'm currently working on a invasive weed project in a watershed that is a small tributary to the Santa Clara River, which is one of the last remaining wild rivers in Southern California. I'm presenting today a petition to the board from landowners in the area that are concerned about the watershed, and I'm just going to read to you their petition. It says, we, the unsigned property and water well owners located in Bouquet Canyon Creek, respectfully request that the board not take any action that would take water that should flow down Bouquet Canyon Creek and divert that water through any path other than Bouquet Canyon Creek. We believe such action to be in direct conflict with both the spirit and the letter of state and federal riparian water rights laws. As owners of a dam on Bouquet Canyon Creek, you have a special duty to the downstream land and well owners to provide normal water flow as if the dam did not exist. We land and water well owners depend on this normal flow to replenish the water in Bouquet Canyon's alluvial plain, which supplies our water wells and which in turn supplies our drinking water and the water for other land-related uses. We have already experienced a serious drop in the Bouquet Canyon watershed water table. Wells are going dry and losing capacity. Since LADWP has been releasing significantly less than normal water flows over the last 8 years. This petition is not meant to condemn these actions. Indeed, several Aqueduct Division personnel have spent significant time and effort in trying to resolve the multi-jurisdictional water flow problem. We are asking the board not to take any action that would further inflict damage, both mental and financial, on the home well owners of the Bouquet Canyon Creek watershed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll circulate copies of this petition to the board members. Next public speaker?
Well, he turned in 2 cards, Mr. Herring, so he already
I think there's
spoke.
someone else.
Is there a different one?
Please come forward.
Oh, okay, A. Herring, obviously. I saw Roger Herring twice. Okay.
My name is Roger D. Herring. I reside in Bouquet Canyon, about 11 miles downstream from Bouquet Dam and Reservoir. I have a well on my property which I use for domestic purposes and which is dependent for replenishment to a significant extent on water released from Bouquet Reservoir into Bouquet Creek. I, along with other well owners in Bouquet Canyon, have a third-party interest in the contract between the Department of Water and Power and United Water Conservation District, which governs the release of water from Bouquet Reservoir into Bouquet Creek. Since 2005, Los Angeles Department of Water and Power has only intermittently released water from the reservoir into Bouquet Creek in the contracted amount, and as of this date, water from the reservoir, the water deficit is more than 4,000 acre-feet. Since 2007, in conjunction with staff of the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power aqueduct operations and other agencies, I have been seeking an equitable resolution to the issues which have led to the reduction in flow by the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. I now understand that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power is considering the diversion of water released from Bouquet Reservoir to a location downstream from the wells in Bouquet Canyon. I respectfully request the Commission instruct your legal staff to include in this consideration an attorney who represents the interests of the Bouquet Canyon well owners. I believe there are options which would result in an equitable resolution to the issue of contract performance and water deficit while still protecting the water rights of Bouquet Canyon well owners. I believe this resolution can be accomplished in a timely fashion, without litigation, and without cost to Department of Water and Power ratepayers. In fact, one option would generate revenue to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will honor my request.
Thank you. Does that conclude public comment?
Yes, that was the last card.
We're going to pull from the consent agenda the following items: 8, 11, 15, 16, 18, 21, 22, and 23. So I'd like a motion to approve items 6, 7, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 17, 19, 20, 24, 25, 26, 28, 29, 30, and 31.
And
So
item
moved.
5 as well?
And 5, yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition?
Abstain.
We'll note Commissioner Moss's abstention. Hearing no opposition, the motion passes. So let's start with item 8, which I believe Commissioner Newton had questions about. Did we say something? Who's presenting item 8? Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joe Reynoso. I'm the contract administrator for item 8 and item 11.
I have several questions, so I'll just start with the first page. In the first page of the item, it states that the department decided not to do a cooperative purchase with the City of Los Angeles because the department felt that it could get better pricing on its own. However, you never elaborate whether or not that was successful or not. Would it have been better to do a cooperative purchase with the City of LA?
At the time we did the comparison, Commissioner, the pricing that we had received under specifications 212 were more advantageous to the department than what the city had gotten under their contract at that time. However, 212 did include both copier and specialty paper, so it couldn't be awarded as a split award. Therefore, the decision with purchasing was to adjust the specifications strictly for specialty paper and then go back out into the marketplace.
Okay. Well, there's...
Did you understand the answer?
I don't think I have actual numbers, but...
Oh, the numbers, yeah. I'd have to go back to see what the comparison was with the city's contract at that time and then compare those to the numbers
The
received.
question was, did we ultimately pay less money, right?
Exactly.
Did we ultimately pay less money?
Again, I apologize. I don't have the numbers of the city's comparison at that time compared to what we got under 426. But I believe they are lower.
Okay, there are several things that concern me about the situation. we've been contracting with Spicer since 2007.
Yes.
And this is a very, in my opinion, a very generic request. Specialty paper for printing, copying, and writing.
Okay.
Why is it that we only received 2 bids on such a generic item? And furthermore, why were both of those bids determined non-responsive?
My understanding is that first of all, in the paper industry, there are very limited players. Right now, there's Spicer's, Expedex, Unisource, Kirk Graphics, and why they elected to participate or not participate, I don't have an answer for you. The products themselves are generic enough to allow competition.
Which leaves me troubled. You know, you've just listed half a dozen companies. Why did we only receive 2 bids, and why were they both deemed non-responsive?
Oh, I'm sorry. As to the issue of non-responsiveness, my understanding is that there were some documents missing. Expedex did not provide the correlating pricing that compared to the price catalog as to what they provided in ERSP.
And General Manager Nichols, this, you know, I feel is another full circle moment about my serious concern about the procurement that's taking place here. As you saw, item 35 was pulled because that vendor was also told that their bid was non-responsive. You know, they have the funds to have a very prestigious law firm represent their case, and I did review their letter. And it does make me question how the department deems certain bids as non-responsive. It seems like we're not only losing a whole audience of players because of the process, but I also feel that, you know, if we continue granting the same firms contracts dating back to, you know, 7-8 years, it really makes the playing field uneven. So I'm just very uncomfortable with the procurement process in general. And I know that you've stated that you're going to plan a presentation on it, but I see this as an issue that comes up in so many agenda items, and a lot of smaller businesses can't afford Holland & Knight to represent their cases, and so either they just forfeit, and that loses money for the city of Los Angeles, or they just are disincentivized to participate in the bid process at all.
With respect to the current item number 8 that you're referring to, I believe we have had we've discussed many times the issues that we're having with bidders responding to ERSP, our electronic bid response program. We have made some modifications that on an interim basis to allow only a portion of that to be filed electronically, and others can be filed hard copy in order to try to make that process easier. And we are going back, still working on ERSP to try to see what the difficulties are. I'm still a bit surprised about parties' inabilities to file documents on that when we have many sessions that we've had with prospective bidders. We've outreached prospective bidders with regard to this, and parties that even parties who have worked with us in the past and we know have attended sessions advising them on walking them through how we use the electronic bidding process. We've encountered difficulties with those parties. So I'm a bit, I don't have a full answer to you why people can't fill out what seemingly be pretty simple form. Irrespective, we are still looking at that. We are going to get back to you with a report on what we're doing as it applies to our program, but we're still not in a situation where we can just simply waive incomplete applications and incomplete bids, and that's, in this circumstance, my understanding is what we've encountered. I'm frustrated with it too. I'm frustrated with the fact that we're not getting as wide of a set of competitive bids as I think that we might and should appropriately get with the department, and we're still working on that. We are planning in June to have a board presentation on where we are on that whole process. I believe there's anything that we can do with respect to this current instant bid on number 8.
Commissioner Moss, you have a
Yeah,
comment?
I'd like to echo Commissioner Noonan's concerns, and I have a specific question about this specification. What were the criteria for the department deciding to open negotiations with Spicers as opposed to Expedix. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but
My understanding, working with purchasing, was that Spicers had a term on their catalog that limited liability and that needed to be addressed, and Spicer withdrew that term. That's my understanding of a limit.
but if you're free to negotiate with, if you have two non-responsive bids,
Yes.
then someone in the department is exercising presumably some discretion as to approach one bidder as opposed to the other bidder. Correct?
My understanding is that they did negotiate with Expedix, that there was some discussion.
Ms. Williams?
No, that's not what the board letter says. So if there's something in the factual record that's different from what the board letter is, I'd surely like to hear it.
Ms. Williams, can you shed any light on this?
If you look at the recap, Expedix didn't provide the pricing as they were requested to do, so we couldn't evaluate them at all.
Yeah, but you could pick up the phone and call them and have negotiations, can you not?
We don't do that on a bid. If we have two bidders and one comes in and they're non-responsive, and then the next one is a higher price but they're responsive, we are bound to.
No, I appreciate it, but that's not the situation here. If I'm reading this correctly, they were both non-responsive.
And when they're both non-responsive, we negotiate with the lowest bidder.
But you just stated that the other firm didn't submit a price, so how would you assume that Spicers is the lower bidder?
Well, if they don't submit a price, it's a fatal flaw. We don't have any pricing from them.
Well, I think this particular agenda item is flawed in so many ways that I think the process should be easier, it should be more transparent, it should provide the appearance that there's no bias in re-awarding a firm same contract year after year. So I move to abbreviate this term because we obviously need paper, and this contract has expired, but I don't feel comfortable supporting another 3 years with this firm under these circumstances.
So is the motion for a one-year contract, or what's it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the amendment, okay. I'll tell you, I share Commissioner Noonan's concern about us not getting more bids. On the other hand, I'm a little distressed that these companies, and they're not always small companies, can't figure out this process. If they're not smart enough to figure out the process, maybe they shouldn't be doing business with the city, with DWP. So I've really got mixed emotions. I really do look forward, because my fear, of course, is we've got to make sure that we're always comparing apples to apples. And if people are non-responsive, then we are duty bound to bounce them out. And we have to be fair in that process, which is why we have to understand it. But I'm a little concerned that people may be gaming the system a little bit, hoping we will, because obviously if you're non-responsive, that'll affect your pricing. And if you aren't submitting pricing, how can we possibly evaluate your bid? So I think there may be a little bit of, well, we can improve our process, but there may be a little bit of gamesmanship in this process too, which concerns me a bit. So we really do look forward to your presentation. I think we need to have it sooner rather than later. We said in June.
Right.
That'll be good. Mr. Parker, anyone else want to comment before we vote on the amendment to the...
I wish to support my fellow commissioners. I think this is a good place to make a stand. I think Commissioner Noonan's proposal to limit the terms of the contract to 1 year is an acceptable compromise that won't harm the utility's ability to conduct business, but at the same time sends a clear message that the status quo is not acceptable.
Okay. Any other discussion on the, let's vote on the motion as amended. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Questions on number 11 also, Commissioner?
That was me.
They were,
And so, Mr. Reynoso,
This is copy paper now.
Mr. Reynoso, I noticed that on the previous spec that we were talking about for item number 8, that it was called out that there was recycled paper. And when it comes to copy paper, I know that recycled is sort of become part of the everyday usage. And I also know that there's a DWP policy on recycling, where we task ourselves to recycle, but is there a similar policy where we have a preference on purchasing recycled paper?
At this point, Commissioner, I am not aware of a specific special policy within the department for copy paper. We've always used the state standard in putting our specifications out.
The state standard?
Yes, sir.
But I know that we have a policy internally of recycling our paper, and then just logically, you would think that we would have a preference on purchasing recycled paper.
Right.
Is there anyone knowledgeable on this subject? Or so the paper that we're purchasing is not recycled paper? Then?
Oh, no, it is recycled paper.
The copy paper
copy
is
paper, yes,
recycled
sir.
paper,
Copy
because the
paper
board
is-
letter didn't make a note of that.
Copy paper, we specify that it needs to meet the state standard,
All right.
30% office post-consumer.
You know, in the future, if it could be reflected in the board letter, that would be appreciated.
Oh, definitely, thank you.
Is there a motion to approve item 11?
Wait, I have a question.
Okay.
In the board letter, I'm sort of curious, why was the Spicer contract terminated and replaced with Liberty Paper in the past?
That was a city action, Commissioner. We had piggybacked with the city on that contract. The city, in turn, went back out, solicited bids, and then Liberty Paper was a successful bidder.
But was there a reason why? I mean, isn't that kind of odd that they would cancel a contract in the middle of a 3-year term?
Right. On their amendment to cancel, I did not see a reason. I'd have to go back to the city and get that answer for you.
But we just piggybacked on the city.
Yes, sir.
Other questions on item 11?
I'd like to move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, item 11 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Noonan has questions on item 15.
I'll ask Pete Sturko to give specific questions on it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this major theme keeps presenting itself. How in the world can the department only receive one bid to furnish these electrical vehicles?
That's a good question. This,
Did you introduce yourself for the record, please?
yeah, I did. Pete Turco.
And Scott Briasco.
This particular spec is for the Smart Grid program. And for the Smart Grid program, there are some documents that the DOE requires be filled out. And none of the other vendors wanted, we did outreach, none of the other vendors wanted to comply with it.
How many companies did you reach out to?
There were at least 3 or 4. 3 or 4 companies.
This really is deja vu.
Yeah, and we encouraged, actually we personally reached out to them, but because of the DOE requirements, they chose not to participate.
If I could just add, if you could provide a little more clarification on that. It's not a matter of just filling out forms. There are also business requirements associated with representations that you have to make and programs that you have to adopt, various personnel practices and things that are established associated with federal contracting that are not otherwise requirements of the Department of Water and Power or the City of Los Angeles. So it's not just a matter of filling out forms. Am I correct, Mr. Starko?
That's correct.
Well, I think it'd be helpful to have more detailed information in this regard because, you start off this request by stating you have one bid, and then on the second page you say several major automakers have begun the commercial production of PEVs, stating that you have an audience of people who can bid on the item.
Correct.
And, as a commissioner, I just don't feel, I'm doing a proper job of representing the ratepayers, time and again saying, one bid, okay, we'll take it, without really feeling it's been competitively priced.
Yeah, we probably could have been a little more verbose in the board letter that indicated some of the reasoning why we only had the one bid. But just to add on top of that, we did, after the bid was awarded, or so to speak, Wonders actually came back to us and indicated that after their proposal, the manufacturer for Toyota was able to reimburse them for rebates, typically with that the department won't receive as a municipal, which total about $65,000. So that they came back to us even after their bid and reduced what their offer was. So.
And the other thing that I thought it was kind of like a play on words. In the first page it says, it is anticipated, not guaranteed, anticipated that 50% of the expenditure will be reimbursed by DOE. We don't have a guarantee. On the second page you say that there's a grant that will afford to pay for half of this expenditure.
I think I'd probably have to defer that question to maybe Marvin Moon with the Smart Grid Group, but typically all the vehicles that are purchased for the Smart Grid program, the DOE, there's an agreement to pay up to 50% of the acquisition cost.
Marvin?
Yeah, that is correct. It's Marvin Moon, Power System Engineering. This is part of the Smart Grid demo project, and it is the Department of Energy is to reimburse us 50% of our expenditures, including these cars.
So the word anticipated wasn't placed there purposefully? Or
No,
was it a
I don't
mistake?
believe so, no. I think it's just a word.
If I can interject, Commissioner Noon, this is a topic that we've discussed on, I wasn't able to participate in this board agenda review, but we have every item that we have had, and there have been many, as part of our Smart Grid cooperative agreement with DOE. It's 50-50 sharing of pricing on everything that we do, from smart meters to automation equipment and a number of other things. There are lots of procurements that have been made over the course of about the last 2 years under that process. And this has been the same language every time I've actually discussed this with staff each time. I said, well, why are we saying anticipated? We have a grant. Saying, well, it is a grant, and DOE is supposed to uphold their end of the grant. We have encountered circumstances and other arrangements with the federal government where an agreement isn't necessarily an agreement.
How often does that happen?
Well, I can give an example on some Build America bonds, for example, that we issued, where as part of the sequester agreement right now that's going on before Congress, they're talking about reneging on rebates of tens of millions of dollars. That was, we thought, we had our signature, we had their signature on it. It was a done deal. It was a nationwide program. And now they're basically talking about saying, well, sorry, we may not do that after all. So that's just one recent circumstance. That's not a done deal. I don't want to cause any alarm right now. It's not a done deal that they said absolutely no. But these are the types of things that can happen. And for that reason, there is somewhat vague language. I know it's a bit troubling. There's a plan. Our plan is that we will get 50% back. Our expectation is that we will get 50% back. But that relies on the federal government upholding their end of the bargain, and they have to reimburse us after the fact.
One thing, Commissioner, on this one is because this is a little bit more, at the front of this grant program, we had to go through the definitization of the scope of what we need to do, and we feel confident because we had to declare exactly what we're going to do, what outcomes we're going to get. So we don't have this kind of, the submittal of the request and then a misunderstanding of what is reimbursable and what's not. So our confidence level is high on these things because these vehicles were part of the grant scope that we have submitted up front. So we have a high confidence that we will get everything. But with any grant program, we have to submit, we have to fund these purchases. We have to submit for reimbursement. We have to go through all the checks and balances that the federal grant puts on the disbursement of the funds, and sometimes we do have, because we're not experts in these areas, that we do have some disqualification of requests coming in. For example, overhead expenses or things that they will disqualify. So, but in this case, though, our confidence is pretty high that this is pretty straightforward.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Parker, anything else, Commissioner Noonan? Commissioner Parker, you had a question?
So the federal government's on furlough today, so we can talk bad about them and no one's there to hear us. Just to put a finer point on it, we're looking at the sedans coming in around $31K and the extended range ones coming in around $40. So Pete, just to be clear, we're anticipating to have half of that repaid by the federal government.
That's correct.
All right. And so I noticed that Wondries is here in LA County, and I noticed in a number of our previous contracts, we've been contracting with dealerships that are outside of LA County. And so is this I know that we have a local bid preference, and so was Wonderies sort of identified as part of that local bid preference, or how did we prefer Wonderies over? I know we've used a dealership up in Sacramento in the past.
Yeah, that's correct. No, like we said early on, we reached out to a lot of the different vehicle manufacturers that have both hybrid and EVs available. And again, because of that, DOE requirement, a strict requirement to report out, they chose not to bid.
All right. And so you reached outside of LA County as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Moss?
Does Wonderies, do they just represent Toyota, or do they have other?
They have other dealerships. I mean, they represent more than just one.
Other
vehicle.
manufacturers?
That's correct.
So do you know which cars, whether they'll be Toyotas or Chevrolets or anything like that in this package?
Yeah, it's actually all. Yeah, it's GM, Nissan, and Toyotas. They're going to be providing all three manufacturers.
Okay, and the price that Commissioner Parker said per unit, does that compare favorably to what someone could get
It's
if they went
actually-
went to a dealership themselves?
I believe it's their estimate was slightly higher than what our proposed estimate would be, but then they came back, like I said, after the fact with this $65,000 rebate.
I don't think that
That
was
was
the
his question. His question
Yeah.
was, are we paying less than I would pay if I walked into a dealer today?
Well, I would like to think so.
I'd like you
Well,
to tell
do we
me
know
so.
that?
Yeah. Well, I don't know how good of a negotiator you are. I mean, some people can go into a dealership and pay pretty, get a vehicle.
No,
for a price.
So let me take a stab at that. Their pricing is pretty close, dead on with MSRP pricing for these vehicles, and that is typically for these three vehicle types. That's what you would pay as a consumer if you were to go in and buy one of these vehicles. So it's.
So there's no volume discount? You would think.
Yeah, and also,
well, with the exception of the with the RAV4s that are coming in and the discount that they're giving us, that is a volume discount that they are providing to us. Yes.
well, I thought the idea of buying through a fleet service was that you get less than MSRP, and that's the whole point of going through a fleet service.
The electric vehicles are a little bit unique because the production numbers are small, so they kind of hold to that MSRP pricing because the demand for these vehicles.
Are we getting the undercoating anti-rust protection on the cars?
I don't think we're getting that feature now.
How about the delivery? Are there, all joking aside, are there dealer add-ons in this thing? Like the delivery charges and the other junk that dealers put on cars?
The one add-on that we're getting on the Nissan Leaf is we're getting the quick charge port, which is going to help us with our smart grid demo, and we'll be able to charge those vehicles with some quick charge stations that we're going to be installing through the smart grid grant. So it's the base unit with that add-on, which is typically another $1,300 for that vehicle.
So how do our purchase prices compare to, say, other utilities are buying similar vehicles? Because I understand the market's not fully developed, so folks can stick to the sticker price.
I think these prices are competitive with what other utilities and other government agencies would be paying for these vehicles.
Okay, can you find that out, just so we know, just so we have a sense of that? Okay, Commissioner Noonan.
Thank you. On page 4, just returning to Commissioner Parfrey's question about whether or not local entities were approached, you state that Nissan of downtown LA stated the specification and the attachments, including the DOE Smart Grid program requirements, were complicated and lengthy. And I know that it's been a mission of the departments to try and incentivize local business growth. And, I think it goes back to the procurement process. If we can invest educating different industries on how to feel more comfortable with bidding, I think it's going to save the ratepayers millions and millions of dollars. So I think that's something that seriously needs to be considered and addressed in the June presentation. Time and again, we keep hearing people stating that they're not comfortable with the process, and I'm sure that if there was education and an increased outreach on our part, we would get more bids and we would get better competitive pricing.
Commissioner, we will include a summary of both, not only what we've done historically, but what additional efforts we have recently been doing and what we'll be doing in the future on that, so we give a full picture of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, during the pre-bid meeting with proposed vendors, it's explained to them the ERSP process, and if they need any assistance, that's provided to them or a contact person at that point to make sure they have all the understanding on how to do their bidding. So we do reach out to them.
But obviously it wasn't enough, because for them to just pull back saying it was too complicated, they didn't feel supported enough to bid.
So with the promise of sort of a matrix that shows what other utilities are paying for electric vehicles, with that promise in mind, and we hope that could be delivered to the Commission within the next couple weeks, I would like to move to approve item 15.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item 16, I believe that was Commissioner Parfrey?
Yes, I'm hoping, Marvin, is that you?
I can.
Aaron? Yeah, I have a few questions, but this looks like a very promising piece of software, and I'd like to know more about it.
So this is a basically overarching system that we are deploying. It's called Pi Historian. Basically, with all the deployment that we have with the renewable solar and wind and the points, because we do have hundreds of millions of these points coming into our system with the smart grid communications, and the more sophisticated our system gets, the more there's a need for us to sift through all that information and have some kind of a logic that we could overlay to our system, that we could only see in our remote terminal units, the points that the operators would like to see, with the exceptions and operating limits and things like that we would like to see. This is that system that is basically an overarching system, and we're developing it with the smart grid, with the renewables, with the smart grid on the vehicles, the distributed generation, the solar installations, and everything that we're doing that will allow us to control the system much better.
So would this software sit up at the ECC?
ECC has a desk we've opened up. I think I mentioned it last time. We have for the first time at the Energy Control Center that some of you have visited, on the desk that has the renewable desk, the operator actually has these screens that bring these points, operating points, into the screen that will allow us to do forecasting, variance control on the wind coming into our system, balancing our systems. And this software is basically, it has intelligence that could be built into it that will allow us to fine-tune these points that come to the screens for them to see the operations.
And are there certain, like, weather station information, is that transmitted, and cloud cover associated with distributed generation, is that integrated in the software?
This has the capability of doing it, so as we bring in more of the forecasting tools, cloud covers and wind forecasts and regional issues, I mean, we can also bring in, for example,
but it's not in the current module that we're purchasing, but it's an additional module that could be brought in to deal with the intermittency. Is that in our contract that we're approving?
This will allow you to do that. The weather forecast software and those add-ons are basically a plug into this system, and it will allow you to bring that information in there. But this does have the capacity for us to tap into those information and bring them the same way. With all these points, we don't want to have too many of these systems coming into different ways for the operators to see. This kind of integrates all those points and brings it in.
Because I would assume that the weather add-on would be absolutely critical if we're dealing with, these with the feed-in tariff coming online, with the rooftop solar program and people taking advantage of that. We want to make sure that we can integrate as much of this electricity as possible.
Yes.
And so this is are you guys coming back to the commission in the future for the purchasing of the add-ons on the weather, or what does that look like, Marvin?
Well, the weather is a different system. This computer software takes data from almost any source, whether it be weather component, or from metering, or from our instrumentation on our system, and then it looks for trends, and it can store a tremendous amount of data, but a little differently than a typical like Oracle system. So the bottom line is a data collection place. It stores data, it looks for trends, and it can integrate a lot of different sources, including weather and other things going on in the system.
Is this mostly then for distribution planning, or is it mostly for like on-the-fly integration?
It's more of from generation to transmission to distribution. It has all the applications that we currently are automating. For example, on the distribution side, we have transformers that we're buying that have basically onboard computers that monitor the operations of the transformer.
Okay.
But without having a way for you to extract that data, what you have is a manual interference where operator goes and reads, for example, the temperature of the transformer. This system will allow you to tap in electronically the temperature on a 15-minute intervals or half-an-hour interval without somebody actually going and taking the read. And you can tell the system, take the reads and don't tell me about it unless I have an exception. For example, if it goes beyond this point, tell me about it. But the information is flowing all the time into the system with the filters that are overlaid to it. So it has a lot of capacity for us to use. On the transmission line, for example, we have capacity to use sag points, on the transmission line when it's hot, and we've loaded the transformers. We have gauges on the transformer, on the lines themselves, that will send a signal back to the system and saying that, you're crossing the thresholds on the sagging of the lines, and this system will pick up and say you need to do something with the operations.
So this strikes me as a very good investment because we can integrate more of the renewables into the grid, and it strikes me that then we can handle other things such as EVs and understand how they actually operate, not in a hypothetical situation, but in real time.
Yes.
Well, I'm really excited about it. I just want to make sure that the distribution planning folks like Muklas and others are involved in this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they are.
And so with that in mind, unless there are questions from the other commissioners, I'd like to move to approve the item.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 18.
A specific question I can answer.
Yes. Aram, I'm having a conceptual problem with this item, and if I'm reading the board letter correctly, we are wheeling for Anaheim.
Yes.
And we're going in the opposite direction. We're going from south to north.
Yeah.
On the grid, and so I'm just trying to understand why Anaheim wants that.
So just the way geographically Anaheim has interest in Magnolia Power Plant, which is in Burbank.
Right.
The Burbank operates the power plant. They are owner in that power plant. They have to cross our balancing authority. So Anaheim is in the CalISO system. They have to cross our transmission grid for us to deliver that energy to a point where they can pick it up on their system. So Midpoint Lugo is a point of interconnection between LADWP and CalISO. So we take their energy from within our territory, which Burbank is in our balancing authority, and we deliver it to them at the point where they can pick it up.
Okay, I understand. So just so everyone's really clear on this, Anaheim, which is to the south of us, is getting electricity generated in Burbank. It's being traveled to the middle of the desert so it can then return to Anaheim.
Yes, we have
All
to
right,
find...
just so everyone understands that. All right.
Yeah, but it's not the same electrons. We give them different electrons.
I understand. Well, and it strikes me that this is a really good deal for DWP. It's a revenue generator, so I'm in full support. I don't know if the other commissioners have
Other questions on item 18?
I'd like to move to approve,
A
please.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 21.
That's me again.
At 19 and 20 are identical agreements.
We're on 21.
We're in 21.
Oh, 20. Oh, I'm sorry.
Now, if I'm reading this correctly, having to do with Mojave, is that the easement is a precursor to a sale?
Right. So what's happening right now in Ledesma with real estate, Commissioner, is that the 8.01 acres that are going to be sold to Nevada Energy needs to be subdivided out of the total. And in order to do that, one of the requirements in Nevada law for the subdivision is there has to be some public right-of-way street dedication as part of that subdivision, or to subdivide the property. So that requires the department to give up rights, which by city charter requires us to go to the board and council.
Do we have a timeline on the sale
of the
property when it happens? Because this is a precursor to a sale.
That I don't. This is I don't know about.
We have some estimates within a year of this happening. The sale, that they have to do the appraisals and everything else. That's a separate package that will come to the board. This will basically allow us. This is part of the disengagement of the Mojave, which is basically brownfield right now, from the switch yard, and then the arrangements that will allow us to make the sale. So we're not at that point yet. This will basically package this part of the maintenance yard that Nevada uses right now, and they pay rent for them to use it. We will subdivide it, and then the sale part will follow up on this.
Yeah, I'm just probing as to when the ultimate sale is, and the department can say that we're fully out of Mojave.
This is not that transaction.
Actually,
and that's what I was probing on.
Yeah, actually, the yard, a lot of the renewables that are going to be developed there, that yard is becoming much more important for us to bring it to our McCullough and Marketplace yard from the Mojave switch yard.
Okay.
The field is gone. The power plant is gone.
Yeah.
Separated.
Yeah. All right. That was the only question I had, so I move to approve.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Item carries. Item 22, I think that's also you,
Yes, it
Commissioner
is.
Parker.
Hi. Could you introduce yourself for the record, please?
Susan Rogani, Water
This is
Engineering.
for items 22 and 23 together,
Yes.
if I might. If my understanding is that there's going to be a delivery of water to be injected into the Dominguez Gap barrier from Terminal Island,
Yes, that is correct.
and the Terminal Island plant is operated by,
Bureau of Sanitation.
and I did not see Bureau of Sanitation's name on any of the documentation that we've been provided. So could you elaborate on why BOS isn't part of this agreement?
Well, this is an initial agreement with flood control and the Water Replenishment District. Basically what it is BOS produces the water from Terminal Island. Once it leaves Terminal Island, we purchase it from the Bureau of Sanitation, and then we turn around and we sell it to the Water Replenishment District. The Water Replenishment District then takes responsibility and injects it into the gap, which is run by the county. So I guess that's why...
How much are we paying for the water that we purchase from BOS?
Right now, it's $852 per acre foot.
And how much are we charging the Water Replenishment District?
Water Replenishment District currently, it's $650 an acre foot. However, the second agreement, where we want to increase the amount that we charge to them, is going to come up to the $852 an acre foot as of July 1st.
So we're operating at a loss for...
Just for 6 months. Basically, Terminal Island Treatment Facility came back online at the end of the year, and we had an agreement with the Bureau of Sanitation for the $852. We were also negotiating with WRD to get to that same price point. They requested a little bit of time because of their how they have to do their budget, their timeline. So we gave them the 6 months. So they are now, as of July 1st, this agreement will take them up. So we're pretty much equivalent.
One of the things we did on this, Commissioner, is previously at Terminal Island, rather than having, and technically we're not buying the water from sanitation, it's DWP's water, but we have an agreement with them to compensate them on a per acre foot basis for cleaning it up to advanced water standards. And the agreement originally, we paid for all the capital and O&M, whether they produced water or not. And so we were paying, when you really sat down and corrected the numbers, we were paying a lot for very little water. And I changed this because I wanted to have the right kind of incentives for them to keep the plant maintained, that we only pay for water that gets delivered to customers now. And so one of the things we were doing is trying to get all the pricing aligned. So we have an agreement with sanitation on a per acre foot basis. And this is the second step of that, to get our retail customers aligned so that we're not subsidizing this thing anymore. I'm trying to get us out of the subsidy business and into getting compensated for the water.
And that'll happen after the 6-month
Yes.
period?
Yes.
Going on into the future?
And then we have provisions in here to escalate the cost of the water to take into account future increases.
And is that agreement firm with Water Replenishment District?
Yes. Much to their
And Jim, you said
discomfort.
we paid for the capital for building the Terminal Island Advanced Treatment Facility?
Yeah, up to now. There's going to be an expansion, as you probably are aware. We're going to be expanding that. This new compensation, per acre foot compensation structure will now take place of the DWP paying for all the capital. They'll have to pay for the capital improvements out of the water that they sell, if you will, to us.
I just want it to be really clear that we're going the extra mile on this thing.
Absolutely.
And we've helped Bureau of Sanitation out a great deal. They're going to make a little money off of us for a little while on this. But I think it's such an important project. I mean, this is big stuff. I'm really a big enthusiast of this use of recycled water. And I'm okay with it as long as it's just for a 6-month period. So I would like to, unless the other commissioners have a comment, I'd like to move to approve both items 22 and 23.
Are there seconds?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Items 22 and 23 pass. I think that takes us through the consent agenda, and we're now up to item 33. And it's the budget issue, Ron, so...
Correct.
Yeah.
You, Phil Leiber.
Commissioners, Phil Leiber. I'll be presenting this item. We're going to have a fairly short PowerPoint presentation that we brought up on the screen that I'll go through rather quickly. There haven't been a lot of changes in this budget from the preliminary budget that we presented to you a couple months ago. So I'm mainly going to focus on just a couple of changes that did take place. But you're welcome to stop me along the way to ask any questions that come to mind. Reggie, if we could have the PowerPoint brought up. Okay. Thank you. So here's the items we're going to go through. Just quickly touch on why we're talking about the budget now, talk a little bit about our programs, staffing, and then finally next steps. We prepared this receipts and appropriation budget because it is required under the city charter that we go into the next fiscal year with this budget in place. The receipts and appropriations budget is not really what we use to manage the utility on a day-by-day basis. It's in a format that the city uses for comparability among the various city departments. But it does include information on O&M, capital expenditures, financing activities, and fuel and purchase power. We're bringing this to you now because we are required under the city charter to present the budget to the CAO by May 30th. And this is the second step in the process, which began with the preliminary budget, which we delivered by March 31st. As I had mentioned, there really is very little in the way of changes from the preliminary budget. There's really just one worth pointing out in water and one worth pointing out in power. In terms of the water fund, the only substantive change is that we now have the information on snowpack and We are coming into a second very poor water season. Snowpack was only 35% of normal, so unfortunately this means it's the second year of a drought, and our purchased water costs are going to be high for a second year in a row. We will see that affects the quarterly water pass-through adjustments that we'll be talking about on the next agenda item. In terms of the power fund, really only one thing substantively happening here that's a change from the preliminary budget. Despite our best efforts to ramp up the energy efficiency program to the budgeted level in the current fiscal year, we did fall short. We were making a very substantial increase in our spending there, and there were some constraints we ran into. That does mean that we're going to have some additional fuel costs next year. On the other hand, we will have some additional energy volumes. The net effect of that is that the revenue increases by about $45 million in the financial forecast. Now, because of a mechanism we have, customers will see kind of a return of that over collection in the following fiscal year, but it does affect the budget this year. Just turning to some of the highlights, this is really what's happening in the funds. I'm not going to go into detail on all these numbers. I just want to point out in the bottom half of this page you see the financial metrics. I can say that we are preparing the budget in accordance with the previously approved financial metrics for the water and the power system, and we are meeting those metrics apart from one. And at the next board meeting we will be requesting a revision in the financial metrics for the water system. The current metrics call for 2 times debt service coverage, and based on our current projection we would fall just short of that, but that's something we will ask for an adjustment for at the next meeting. Rather than get into these details now, I'll just go and give kind of a highlight for water and power. These are the programs that we presented when we talked about the rate case last year. These are the same programs. You'll be seeing these year after year. The only change we have is on the water side. We have, given the magnitude and importance of the efforts, broken out the regulatory compliance effort in Owens Valley as a separate category so we can see those costs. And the key challenge here is we are increasing our spending in these important programs, and the balance that we'll have to continue to try to maintain is to keep rates competitive for our customers while these additional investments are being made. So in terms of the power system, this is just a snapshot of what's happening. The bars on the left show where we were projecting our finances to come in last summer when we were talking about rates for 12-13 and 13-14. And now as we're entering into this 13-14 program year, we have our preliminary budget and the final budget here. And as you can see, there's very little in the way of change. The only thing that did change is, again, we fell a little short on energy efficiency achievement this year, so we end up spending a little bit more in terms of fuel costs in 13-14. Just delving into those components a bit further, this shows the actual figures. And as I had mentioned, fuel and purchase power costs a little bit higher in terms of the final budget versus preliminary. O&M is increasing, as you can see, from the current year, and that's all in accordance with the ramp up on spending in these key programs. The city transfer has remained consistent, and for next year that's just budgeted at 8% of the prior year's revenues. You can see it increased by about $2 million because our volumes and our revenues in 12-13 are turning out to be a little bit better than planned. One other thing I would just draw your attention to is net income is forecast to be a bit higher than what we use for planning purposes. We normally set rates to achieve about a $50 million buffer in net income. We're actually looking at about $100 million of net income next year, and that's largely due to lower interest rates that we were able to sell our bonds at earlier in this fiscal year, and then in this current sale that we are currently underway with.
Phil, is that that 102, is that net of the transfer to the city? Or in other words, is that what's left over after the transfer to the city?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, for planning purposes, we aim for at least a $50 million buffer there, given the volatility that we may see in our revenues or other expenses. Just talking a little bit about where these dollars are being spent, we have our 3 key programs that are shown on this chart. We also have 3 pie charts to the left that show the dollars that we're talking about do cover, most of the dollars are accounted for in terms of those 3 programs. So in the first pie chart, that shows, in terms of the capital budget, most of the dollars, more than 3/4, are related to spending in those 3 key programs. On the O&M budget, it's just short of half. In fuel and purchase power, that's mainly just natural gas, coal costs, etc., but about 1/4 of the balance is related to renewable power as part of our power supply replacement program. So again, just to say a few words on all these categories. Power supply replacement, that's a significant program that includes rebuilding the local power plants, transitioning to 25% and then 33% renewable power. And the main drivers of the increase of $112 million in capital are the Scattergood repowering and Barron Ridge transmission. And this is offset by a decrease as we wrap up our work on repowering Haynes 5 and 6. The power reliability program is the other key program. We're increasing our spending there by about $115 million. That's moving us in the right direction, but still not ideally where we'd like to be to keep up with the needed replacement of our aging infrastructure. And then finally, the customer opportunity programs includes 2 key programs, the solar programs, including the ramp up on the feed-in tariff, as well as the additional spending on the energy efficiency program. In terms of the water system, just a couple of key slides. The story here, the big change is, as we see from the preliminary to the final budget, when we presented the preliminary budget in March, we did not yet have our final stream flows in for the year. When we got those in April, we were somewhat dismayed to see that we had a second poor year, and that means that our purchased water costs, which are shown in the dark blue, are going to have to increase substantially next year, in total by about $90 million from the projection that we had made previously, which assumed an average water year. Just delving a little bit deeper into these items, so you can see the purchased water costs increases by $90 million from our estimate just back in March, and it's a substantial increase from the amount that we had budgeted this year as well. And
excuse me.
Yes.
Jim, what's the price per acre foot that we're paying Met this year?
Well, it depends. It's a blend. I mean, the full treated Tier 2 rate, which will have some of that, is up over $1,000 an acre foot. And then there's the treatment surcharge is about $250, and then Tier 1. So then at the low end, it's probably around $600 an acre foot. So it varies. Most of it's at the lower end, but we do pay for some water on the margin as high as over $1,000 an acre foot.
So I think this, and we're able to cover that additional $90 million. Is there's a formula that's part of a pass-through that will increase rates for ratepayers?
Yeah, and we've got that's one of the pass-throughs. We have other pass-throughs we're going to be talking about in a following agenda item. I was going to cover the purchase water pass-through at that time too, but yes, the purchase water is covered in a pass-through. Those Met bills get divided by the number of billing units we expect to sell over the next year, and then that's prorated onto the customer's bills.
Thank you.
I did just distribute an item that we'll talk about on the next agenda item as well, which shows the effect on water rates our customers will see given this increase in purchased water costs. So we'll talk about that a little bit more at the next item. In terms of the additional numbers on this chart, we see O&M spending increasing from the current year, and that's all in accordance with the ramped up on spending on key programs, which we'll touch on in a moment. Capital spending is increasing as well. Ultimately, that will put pressure on debt service, which here isn't going up very much because we had lower bond issuance costs and interest rates than we had planned on. So that helped offset some of the pressure in the current year. And I should note that we do not have any base rate increases planned for fiscal year 13-14, just the normal operation of the pass-through rates. which, apart from purchased water, are going to remain pretty constant. So here's an overview of the spending on the key programs. The Safe Drinking Water Program includes projects for regulatory compliance, reservoirs, and trunk line replacement. That's increased by about $19 million from the current year, and that includes about $28 million for the Headworks Reservoir Project, one of the more significant ones. In terms of water infrastructure, that's the second category here. That includes another $45 million increase from the current year. That's just to try to get ahead of the replacement cycles, moving from once about every 400 years to closer to once every 300 years, so heading in the right direction, but ultimately we still have a ways to go to get to the replacement cycles we should be at. The spending on the local water supply program, that's ultimately the solution to this volatility that we're seeing in purchased water costs. If we were further along there, we wouldn't see these type of swings that we're seeing on our rates, but we are making substantial investments there, increasing funding by about $77 million from the current year. And then finally, regulatory compliance for Owens Valley. We have about $24 million increase there, ramping up after some delays in the previous dust mitigation programs, including the delays we've found from finding historical artifacts in one of the areas where we needed to do additional controls.
Phil, what is the total amount for regulatory compliance that we're anticipating for next year in the budget?
For Owens Valley?
Yep.
Yes, so it's $159 million. That's capital of about $123 and O&M of about $36.
So, Jim, how much of that, in terms of an average customer's water bill is going to Owens Valley for regulatory compliance?
So right now, about 15% of an annual customer's water bill can be chalked up to capital, O&M, or replacement water at Owens Lake. So almost 2 months out of an annual bill.
Okay.
Just a quick point on that, Jim. That doesn't include anything for incremental new requirements that we have been requested under phases 9 and 10, for example, or anything at all. There's not a dollar of that in this. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have been, there's some orders that we have challenged that known as phases 9 and 10 that do not include that. It does include our obligations under phase 7A, which we've already agreed to do. That's included in this.
Thank you.
Okay, turning to another element of our budget, talking about what's happening with staffing. Staffing remains a relatively small portion of the overall revenue requirement. On the power side, only about 25% of the budget goes to staff and related benefits, and that's remained pretty consistent from last year. On the water side, it's closer to 22% of the revenue requirement. A lot of that cost goes in the O&M. A smaller portion gets recovered as people are working on capital projects, so is included in the capital item. In terms of what's happening in terms of overall staff numbers, this bar chart shows we had planned to increase staff in 13-14. That's not because we're adding more people to do the same amount of work. We have a lot of new work that we have to get done in terms of meeting these mandated projects. So budgeted or funded staffing increases by just short of 300. We are having our challenges in actually getting people on board. So we did not deviate from the funded level that we had assumed a year ago for what we needed in 13-14.
So, Phil, so what that means is you have a funding level, but you're not going to necessarily achieve that funding level with actual hires or actual employees.
It's our hope that we get there, but we do face constraints. To the extent we don't actually get there, we may not have 9706 on average during the year, which means we may have to spend more on overtime for our existing people. To the extent that we've got a set amount of work we have to get done, it will need to get done with either existing staff or ideally bringing in the new people to get it done more cost effectively.
What is your projection for amount of retirees or employees that will be leaving overall the systems over the next year?
We did present that at the last presentation, and the numbers are significant. That's one of the challenges that we have is getting up to these figures when we, adding people when we're losing just as many. It's kind of hard to get to the numbers we're hoping for.
But I thought in that presentation you said there were people eligible for retirement, but they in fact were not leaving. Did I misunderstand that?
We did show the eligible numbers, and they're very high, but the number of people actually leaving is pretty significant as well.
Hey, Commissioner Parker, you had a question?
And just as a quick point on that, I believe when actuarial analyses are done, they do assessments of anticipated level of retirement that goes above and beyond just when people are eligible to take into account historically what has for those who are eligible, what percentage of those have typically actually left the department.
Has the department performed a study to look at the potential impacts on performance due to, loss of expertise, the brain drain problem? Have we looked at that, and have we raised a red flag that this might actually affect operations?
No, we've more than raised a red flag. We have been instituting and will be instituting further programs to do more cross-training, more knowledge transfer from persons, as well as just simply capturing and codifying business practices and operation practices, safety and other practices to make certain that we have that. Now, if you ask the next question, are we going to capture all of that? I'll be honest with you, it's a challenge, but it's something that we've taken on seriously. We're working closely on those issues and are putting both training efforts into that as well as some computer training tools that we hadn't had historically to put into that. But there is a lot more to do, and it is a daily challenge to try to keep up with that.
Well, I for the next, commission that sits up here, and for the folks down the hill at City Council, I think they need to hear that message loud and clear, that the actual performance of this utility depends upon the expertise of the personnel, and there's folks moving into retirement, operations will be affected, and we need to communicate that loud and clear.
Well, it's certainly our goal that operations will maintain reliable, but it is it's just a daily challenge to make certain that we have the coverage that we need on these activities, and making certain that we're training replacements before our key people retire.
And that challenge is not unique to DWP.
By no means.
IOUs have the same issue. It makes it all more difficult to replace them. Phil?
Okay, the other thing I just point out is a subsequent agenda item will also talk about the annual personnel resolution. We're at about 8,800 staff as we sit here today. The maximum kind of theoretical number of people we'd have authorization for next year would be just short of 10,000 at 9996, and we'll have a subsequent presentation that talks a little bit more about that number. But again, in terms of funding purposes, we're just looking at increasing by about 300 positions from the level of funding in this year's budget to next year. Just a few words on benefit costs. This is a bar chart that shows projected benefits, how they increase from this year to the next. Healthcare costs are shown in red. They increase modestly by about 5%. Pension costs are increasing a little more, and I'll get into the reason for that. These are based on the actuarial projections as of last summer, and one of the key things that affected this number is we had poor investment performance returns for the 11-12 fiscal year. Now the good news is if the investment performance that we're seeing this year continues, we should be in a good position to more than make up for that loss we faced last year. This bar chart does not yet count on that, but what we have is the yellow numbers are where we thought we would be in terms of investment performance. But when we got the results in from 11-12, it showed that because we earned about 0% rather than the actuarial assumed 7.75, and then we spread that loss over multiple years, you can see our pension costs for many years at a time are going to have to be increased to make up for that loss. Again, the good news is if investment performance continues at the pace we're seeing this year, we should more than make up for that loss that we saw last year.
Phil, how does the 7.75% projection get done? Or how is that adopted as the benchmark, since it's obvious that that's a pretty high bench? 0 to 7 3/4 is a big difference.
Well, it is a long-run expectation, so it's a given that in any particular year, you may come in below that, you might come in above that. This is something that pension funds periodically look at. It's something that our fund will be looking at in terms of an actuarial performance study. It is something, the 7.75, it's comparable to what you'll see in other funds. You may see some a little lower, some a little higher, but it's something that is looked at periodically, and an assessment will have to be made. Is that consistent with what we can really expect to return in this market environment? There are some experts who would say that that's too high. There's been a lot of press about that. But of course, if you lower it, it does mean you're going to have higher contributions to make up for it. So it's you want to be accurate, but you don't want to assume too low either, because there is a real cost in terms of
what has our 5-year average been in actual return?
I don't have that off the top of my head, but I suspect we have probably fallen a bit short of that just over the past decade. As we've seen, there hasn't been a lot of movement overall in the S&P 500.
Just a quick reminder, Commissioner, we had, and serves me correctly, until about 2 years ago, had an 8% target level assumption in the reinvestment rate for our retirement fund, and we adjusted that down to 7.75, I want to say 20 months or so ago, on that, because we weren't quite hitting the 8%, as we've seen declining returns in the market since obviously the 2009 timeframe. We monitor it closely. It is an averaging sort of thing, because many of our investments were made many years ago at significantly better rates of return than that. We'll be going through an update again on this, and the Retirement Board will be considering that matter, and we'll ultimately be bringing something back before this board after they've done their update on that.
When do you anticipate that will occur?
Subject check, I think the June timeframe is when that gets done. Probably would come before the Retirement Board then, I believe July. I'm not quite sure exactly the time frame for that, and then coming back before this board. That typically is about a 2 to 4 week period of time, depending upon notice requirements.
If there's a change in the investment projection, will that affect this year's budget, or will that change be for future years?
That would be for future years.
Okay.
So if there aren't any additional questions, this brings us to the end of the presentation. We would request your approval of this budget. And again, just to summarize, this is largely consistent with the rate actions that we took last fall. In terms of the water side, we're not having any changes to base rates or, for the most part, the other pass-throughs. It really is just the purchased water that is an automatic pass-through. And with your approval, we would transmit this package to the relevant stakeholders, including the mayor, CAO, and council, by the end of this month. And once this is behind us, we would begin to turn our full attention to developing the financial plans for subsequent years.
Other questions? Commissioner Parfrey?
Thank you, President Sales. We've gotten a number of budgets over the years, and Phil, I appreciate your presentation. When Mr. Buettner was the interim general manager, we had 3 paragraphs, and that was our budget. And then there are also been budgets where the DWP Commission has sat in this room for about 15 hours straight and gone through it line by. What was that, Jeff? 5 days. 5 days straight, yeah. So this is striking kind of a middle ground, and I appreciate that. But just to give you a fair warning, I anticipate the next commission probably going for the more 15-hour, 5-day, presentations.
God bless them.
But on the energy efficiency, could you walk me through that again? It sounds to me that there's a shortfall, and I want to understand that better. And I looked at your appendix where you're talking about Appendix 2A, where you're talking about energy efficiency, and it appears that the energy efficiency budget is staying true at 138. And is there a change to that number, or?
No, we kept that number the same as what we had counted on for 13-14 a year ago. Where we ran into our difficulties was this year, which coming out of 11-12, when we had about a $55 million budget, trying to more than double our pace of progress to over $128 million. That's where we found we just couldn't ramp up those programs as fast as we had anticipated.
So we just can't, with our current staff levels, ramp up to spend that 138. Is that what you're saying?
We couldn't spend the 128 this year. We're still hopeful we can. David Jaco has made a lot of progress in bringing people on board. At this point, he feels more comfortable with actually being able to get to that number of 138 million of achievement next year. But it was the shortfall in 12-13 that actually had some carryover effects on our budget next year, because we have additional consumption that's going to take because of our shortfall this year, which means we're going to have to spend more in terms of fuel to produce that energy that we had thought wouldn't be there.
And so what is the shortfall this year?
I think we had planned on about 255 gigawatt hours of savings, and the estimate that we're using here is that we achieve only 175 for this year. Now, when we actually complete the year, we'll see where we actually end up, but it was still a fairly substantial shortfall that we're using for planning purposes of developing this budget.
And on a percentage basis, if our target is what, 10%?
10% by 2020, which means we have to save about 1% per year.
And so where does that put us at the gigawatt savings that you're talking that we're actually achieving? Where is that on the percentage basis?
Can we make it up in the future?
That is the hope, that in future years, the shortfall that we found this year, we're going to spread that and overachieve in those out years. But our load is around 25,000 gigawatt hours, so 1% of that you'd need to save about 250. So we were on track in terms of budget, but we fell short in terms of actual performance.
If I could add a little clarification to that, you might recall that one of the things that we're doing is an updated energy efficiency potential study. We're going to dig much more deeply into what is both technically and economically out there, a lot more segmented, a lot more deeply among our different customer classes. And through that process, and it'll be towards Q4 of this calendar year, we'll be laying out a multi-year plan on what is achievable, with expectations that there probably will be some opportunity for ramp up. We will be looking at, because we need to recover from the underspend that we had this year to be able to get to our levels of at least the targeted minimum 10% reductions by 2020. And you'll recall that we've adopted a stretch goal of trying to get to as high as 15% at some point going forward. So we will be armed with a lot better information on how we can ramp up on that. One of the two things that have hampered our situation is not only because we had to ramp up from 55. You might recall we didn't get our rates adjusted and approved effective until November of last year, so we lost part of last year, this last current fiscal year as well. And we've had two major portions of that program. One was LAUSD, LAU's Unified School District program, that took us a while to get there. We now have that program in force moving forward, and our cooperative program with SoCal Gas. And the SoCal Gas program took a while to come together, but that is coming together as well. So I think that things are in motion. We brought more people on board. We can get there, but we are going to have to be looking at ramping up at higher rates in the future than to do the makeup for what we didn't get done in this year, and I'm confident that we can do that.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Commissioner Noonan?
I approved item 15 in large part due to the government grant that was being offered to pay for 50% of the expenditure. I'm wondering how has our state and federal grant funding compared to previous years, and what the department's doing to track grant opportunities.
I don't have with me today a comparison of grant funding for previous years, but I can tell you that in the 13-14 budget, we do have federal grants of about $53 million for both water and power. As an indication of where some of those dollars are going to, we have about $6 million for California Department of Public Health for the state water revolving fund loans. We have about $3.2 million from the Department of Water Resources, $11 million from FEMA, $28 million from the Smart Grid Demo Project, $2.5 million for the Southwest Air Quality Management District.
And how does the department go about tracking state and federal grant opportunities? Is there a division for that, a specific person?
No, it is grant administrators, so it is dispersed across the utility. A lot of effort has to go into tracking these funds. There is an audit that's required, a single audit that any recipient of federal funding must go through. And the requirements for how you spend those dollars in accordance with the requirements are very extensive. So it takes a lot of training, and there's a lot of oversight in ensuring that we meet the requirements of the grants.
Well, I'd like to make a request. I think, given our conversation on item 15 and using the word anticipated and there being potential that grant funding doesn't come through for the department, I think it'd be helpful for our commission to be advised of all circumstances when the department was expecting grant funding that was not provided, just so we can better monitor our optimism of receiving that money.
We can do that. I would like to also point out that one of the items that is an example of where we are dogged determination efforts by the staff was represented in item 25 on the agenda that was approved earlier. The Safe Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Fund was, total amount of that, Jim, was 100, was that the 192 item? Or is it a different item? I saw it in 25, but it's on the Elysian and the other projects. That revolving loan fund amount.
Yeah, I got it.
My recollection, it was north of $175 million, if I'm recalling correctly.
But yeah, this particular one was a little bit smaller. This was just a.
Oh, this was the follow-up item on it.
Yeah, this
that's
is
right.
the follow-up one. But I was just pulling up some numbers. In 2012, we got $192 million in no-interest loans from Safe Drinking Water Revolving Fund, and you know, over the last decade, we've gotten probably, I'm just adding this up here, almost $500 million in low interest and no interest loans from SRF, and that when you do the present value of the savings interest, it adds up to about $189 million over the last 10 years. Those are direct dollars that our ratepayers have been saved. So there's some pretty, and we have a group in the water system, and since SRF is kind of specialized, their main thing is going after SRF, although we also can go after, when ARA had water loans, we went after those, and they apply for and administer the grants.
Thank you.
There are, it sounds like it would be helpful if we could put together for you kind of in one place, which I don't think we've done for a while, a summary of the grant programs that we've done on both the power and the water side. Let's see if we can get that done here in...
I think Commissioner is asking about the differential between the expected funding and the
Correct.
actual funding. Is that
Correct.
Yeah, but I appreciate that. That was my request, but I also like your proposition of just having kind of an executive summary so that we clearly understand how the department's leveraging these opportunities and the cost savings that brings to our ratepayers.
And also, I'd like to request that we have some metrics on what our grant success application rate would be. You know, how many grants are we applying for that we're actually being awarded?
And I would like to even go a little further on this very subject, which would be for there to be an assessment.
Write so fast.
Yeah. If there was an assessment also on...
You can do all this after July, by the way.
Yeah. If you could also look at how the current staff is structured and the relationship with the sort of the coordinators at City Hall on pursuing federal grants, and is there a better way that the department could structurally pursue some of these state and federal grant opportunities?
And I'd like to admonish you not to take any of these requests for granted.
That was bad.
So bad.
Some things we won't miss, right? But on a more serious note, I think all of you know that federal research funding, which I spent a lot of time working on, is really under siege right now. So I think what we might want to add to this report is kind of our forecast particularly at the federal level, of available funding. 'Cause my sense is there may be dramatic reduction. Anything else on this item before we get another joke from Commissioner Moss? Is there a motion?
Trying to keep it light, guys.
Is there a motion to approve the item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any objections? Hearing none, item 33 is approved. Item 34.
Shannon Pasquale, HR. Actually, Phil covered a lot of what it is that I was going to be talking to you about this morning.
Well, thank you very much, then.
He basically put forth what the funding levels will be in terms of the proposed APR and what the actual numbers will be. So if you have any other specific questions, I'll be more than happy to address that, but Phil did kind of cover everything.
Questions on item 34? Commissioner Parfrey?
I just want to make an observation, is that we are today publishing the classifications and the dollar amounts of salaries of every DWP employee. That's my observation.
Any other comments or observations?
No, but I would like to add an amendment to the board resolution, though.
Okay.
On item number 7, it talks about it is the policy of this board that when filling positions, express consideration be given to equal employment opportunity requirements, prohibiting discrimination based on gender, race, color, national origin, age, disability, and all other protected classes in the decisions and actions of the LADWP. I would also like to add to that sexual orientation.
Any comments on the proposed amendment? So let's vote on the matter, assuming it's amended, okay? Is there a motion?
There is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Item 34 passes. Good job, guys. Thank you. Item 36.
Item 36 is a request to approve a power purchase agreement on the Manzana Wind project. It's a 39-megawatt wind north of city of Rosemont, and it's delivering it to CalISO system and then back into our system, control area. And I have a presentation if you would like to go through it.
What's the pleasure of the board? You want a presentation or do we have questions?
I just have a couple questions. I don't know if I need a presentation.
Okay, let's go with that unless others want a presentation.
No, I'm good.
So, Aram, we've been told here at the board that we're moving away from wind. We have enough wind. We're moving more towards solar.
Yes.
Here's a contract on wind.
So this is something that we put in 2010 IRP. There's a couple of benefits here that it is a small project. It's a 39 megawatt wind power purchase. It's a limited power purchase agreement for 10 years. It does fill in the true ups that we talked about. when we go on the market and purchase. So this doesn't fit the overall. I think your comments are exactly right. We do have a balancing act. Between the wind resources and the permanent solar resources. But the benefits that we get from this is different than those long-term resource projections.
How is the profile of generation coming off of this new wind farm compared with that of Pine Tree? It's my understanding that it would probably be very similar in that, therefore, it would come on strong in the middle of the night rather than during the afternoon when we have the greatest demands on our system.
It is. From a diversity perspective, this doesn't give us any more information that we're getting from Pine Tree. There's a couple of benefits that we're getting from this project that we're not getting from Pine Tree.
No, we're dancing with CalISO, right?
It is. Yeah, that's something that we've talked about, getting our capabilities, strengthened on dealing with the interconnections with the CalISO because of the integration issues that we have to deal with. That hasn't been done before. So this is going to give us that depth of operational interface with CalISO and the way we deal with the the two systems and the tariffs that they have versus our system and the cooperation that we have to go through. It is a small project. It does give us a lot of those expertise for us to develop, and those are the benefits that we looked at when we looked at this project as an add-on for us to gain those.
So this is like 8 cents, firmed.
It's about it's $82 at the bus bar. Generated at the bus bar is about $6 additional transmission cost to deliver to our system. So total is about close to 9 cents then 8.
Other questions? I think we have a comment from Mr. Pickle, our ratepayer advocate.
A couple brief comments. One, since this is competitively bid, it offers or creates no additional cost versus our requirement for renewables. And it's lower than expected in last year's financial plan. It is important to note that it's unusual and it's done through the ISO, and we can get the benefits of the renewable credit without necessarily delivering it into our system. So the net present value over the 10-year period, and it's good that it's a 10-year project because we might be able to take advantage of the declining cost of renewables. The net present value total is about $71 million. If you look at the net cost after savings from natural gas to account for that nighttime, the net cost to customers is about $36 million. If you add in the benefits from CO2 credits, the net cost is $25 million. So what are we paying for the renewable net of the benefits of carbon? We're still paying about $25 million, but we're required to do that.
So that 25 million is sort of our overcharge, as you would speak, for the
overcharge
renewables.
out of clearly identified benefits from natural gas reduction and carbon reduction.
Other thoughts or comment? Is there a motion to approve item 36?
There is.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Here are no objections. Item 36 passes. Item 37.
Item 37 is a request to approve an interconnection with K Road. This is one of the projects that this board approved. This is the 250 megawatts at the Moapa land closer north of Las Vegas. This is one of those solar projects that we wanted to bring to our system. Basically, between the project and the Crystal Station, which is controlled by Nevada Energy, there's a short distance transmission line that LA controls, and we have requested the interconnection to the Nevada system to get on our transmission rights to bring it home. And the reason why we're going through this one-off approval is that this is the first time we've done the pro forma contract that this board has approved. We have modified it slightly based on the risk factors that we have, and by the time we bring it back to the board, we need to move on this, which is a mirror image of the pro forma contract that we have coming back to you. But we have to do this because of the timeline that we have to keep moving forward on.
Questions?
Quick question. There have been some hiccups in this project, correct?
Yes.
And are you satisfied, Aram, that we are moving ahead and that we're going to be moving on this this project ultimately?
Yes, K-Road has done a lot of progress on this. This is one of those areas that we've opened up, for interconnection to our system because of our divestiture with Navajo. We've expected these hiccups. We're ready. I mean, we've been working very closely with Nevada Energy. They've been extremely helpful in really helping us, go through these short schedule timelines and helping out with K-Road. K-Road has done a lot of the environmental assessments. They're spending the money right now trying to get ready for this final step, which is the interconnection, so they can go ahead and full blast, build the project.
And so the barriers that were there, you feel they've been overcome?
We get them every day. We get setbacks on issues and stuff, and which we so far we've made a huge inroads on getting this thing. This is the last hurdle for us to get through. The reliability study was completed, the approval was given. Nevada is moving forward on the interconnection studies, impacts, and then having this will finalize the interconnection.
All right. I'm satisfied. I would like to move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes.
Item 38.
Yes.
Item 38 is a request to allow us to have a standard offer, which is less for interconnections that are less than 30 kW. This is 95% of our connections that happen with the residential solar and everything. Right now, we don't have the mechanisms for us to deal with it separately than our normal interconnection requests and the one-off agreements that has to go through the normal process of city attorney's approval and my signature and on behalf of Ron, and we're trying to streamline these interconnections for less than 30 kW so we can get these things done much faster than otherwise we have to.
So if I wanted to put solar on my house, this is the agreement that as part of the package that DWP would give me?
Yeah, it's a one-page agreement. This doesn't get anywhere close on all these issues as far as violating any of the safety issues, the quality issues. We feel like this will streamline the interconnection requests, will get them done faster. It's less frustrating for the customers to deal with this mechanisms we had in place, which was not made for smaller projects. It was made for large interconnection studies and stuff. This will streamline the process, and we feel we can get through those much faster.
In developing this one-pager, did you have community input into that process?
We did. We have, maybe An can give, if you want a quick...
I would. I'd like to know how the one-pager was developed, please.
Bill.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jack Weitzmaker from the Power Engineering Division. There wasn't a formal survey, but we are experiencing almost every day frustrations from the different customers who are trying to interconnect small PV. And so, and then a second, there was also, and it's in the letter here, we participated in a study for California Center of Sustainable Energy and the Department of Energy Sunshot Initiative with other utilities, and we shared the information, and they clearly recommended that we move to a much simpler process.
We've gotten a lot of complaints and a lot of feedback from just dealing with the customers one-on-one. It's just cumbersome, it takes too long, we're going through a lot of the studies that we don't need to, and I think this kind of addresses a lot of those concerns.
And, are there other municipal utilities that are moving in this direction as well? Glendale, Burbank, others?
I'm not sure.
Did we do a
Glendale,
survey on
Burbank,
what kind of paperwork they asked for related to an interconnection agreement?
Well, this project that we participated in, this regional team, they were doing the studies and the comparisons and the benchmarking, and this was a recommendation to everyone to do that. And already different utilities, I can't quote you which ones, are doing some things that are easier than what we're doing. But this is the recommendation that they're making for all the regional utilities to streamline the small solar photovoltaic interconnections.
And last question for me. What are we doing to get Building and Safety also on board in this sort of Paperwork Reduction Act on PV?
I've made contacts, with Building and Safety. I know the team has been making. We still have work to do on as far as coordination of the inspection. That part is not going to be covered by this interconnection, but we do have a lot of interagency coordination that needs to happen in order for us to kind of make sure that the inspections are not done with the normal way of inspecting, so we can streamline. We're doing a lot of streamlining on our end, as far as the meter setting and the inspection and the reads on the tilts and everything we're doing, so we don't send multiple groups of different sections to do the inspection. But we still have a lot of work to do with Building and Safety. But I've talked to the chief inspector at Building and Safety. We're going to set up a meeting to coordinate those efforts between us and them.
Well, I'm really encouraged by this. So we're going from 37 pages down to 1.
30 pages to 1.
30 pages to 1. Yeah, that's
If we do that with our board packages, we'd really be impressed.
I'll work on it.
Okay.
And
so this is definitely a move in the right direction. So
and the
thank
font
you.
is readable.
Is there?
Yeah, not disagreeable. No, I also would like to chime in to say I'm really impressed by this. This is good.
Is anyone so impressed they want to make a motion?
I will make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, item 38 passes. Item 39.
Item 39 is the quarterly water pass-through adjustments that we bring to you periodically. These are the pass-throughs that would be in effect for October through December of this year. And we are asking you to approve the estimated expenditures that are used in the calculation of the rates for that quarter. And these are the expenditures for water quality, water conservation, and water security expenditures. The pass-through rates related to these particular elements of our billing actually are going to be decreasing from about $1.23 to $1.19 per billing unit. So that's a good thing. However, the bad news is the handout that I provided after the last presentation illustrates that overall rates per HCF are going to be increasing fairly substantially from this year to next year, due entirely to our continued reliance on purchased water, given the second year of a drought that we're facing. And the first page of that handout illustrates really the swing that we're going through here, coming off a particularly good water year in 11-12, where purchased water was actually kind of below our normal requirements. Going into the drought of 12-13 and a second year, those costs continue to increase and get passed through. So if you look at just the base rates and the pass-throughs excluding purchased water, we're at about the same place we were in fiscal year 10-11. It's entirely, the increase is entirely caused by the purchased water, which is going to be contributing to an overall system average cost increase from about $3.98 per 100 cubic feet up to $4.57. So the action in front of you today will bring rates down, but the action that happens automatically, the pass-through for purchased water, will more than offset your action.
I think, Mr. Pickle, did you have a comment?
I think this rate increase will be stunning for the customers from the 10-11 to the 13-14 period. It looks like it will be year on year up 29%. But if you take the worst quarters, the January quarter to January quarter, it's a 47%, which will be a real rate shock for the customers. So I think it's important that DWP begin now with an extensive outreach program to facilitate customer conservation on this front, so customers can respond and plan for this, because it is a huge increase. It also points up long-term the importance to continue developing all our resources in a portfolio that protects customers no matter what happens in what area.
Absolutely. Other comments on this item?
Well, I want to echo that, because that was going to be my question. And since the purchased water is really going to increase the amount of money that ratepayers are paying, what are we going to do to encourage conservation, get the word out that is really the ratepayer's only and best strategy for holding down its water costs?
Yeah, and I believe Commissioner Parfrey had requested a presentation on that, so we have that teed up for the next board meeting. We'll be going over both the plan, the programs, changes to the programs, increased incentives, as well as the outreach strategy. So we'll have that for you on June the 4th.
Okay.
Anything else on item 39? Is there a motion?
There is.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 39 passes. I'm going to jump actually to 45, 46. We'll come back to 40 because it's a longer presentation. Item 45.
Yes, I have one speaker for item 45.
What are we?
And that's Ms. Kelly Nicholson.
Ms. Nicholson, are you? Ms. Nicholson? Yeah.
Good morning. I apologize. I was waiting outside to hear my name called.
Good morning.
I will be brief. I respectfully apologize for not having attended the previous meeting on this matter. I was unable to attend due to illness and other obligations. I've been an employee with the Department of Water and Power for 38 years now. I currently work as a real estate officer. I'm an MBA and a licensed real estate broker on the outside with the local agency. My grievance is over 5 years old. Overtime has been addressed under the overtime offered under the appraisal section, of which I am a part under the Barron Ridge project. At present, this is no longer an issue. Appraisal. I have a resolution here approving the contracting of the DWP appraisal work. I agree that this contract is necessary and the department does have a need to contract out because we don't have the staff to handle this project, the Barron Ridge project, at this time. Excuse me. The training plan was established to get DWP employees in the appraisal section licensed so that we could effectively participate in the appraising of DWP real estate contract properties, thereby reducing the need to rely on outside consultants in the future. Real estate employees, there are a total of 3 real estate officers assigned to the real estate section at this time. And the real estate employees in the union were assured that the goal of the real estate appraisal training program is for the department employees to receive the training, classes, and on the job to be licensed as real estate appraisers so that we could produce usable, credible appraisal reports. The California state licensing requirement is 300 hours of training under a licensed appraiser. I have a memo here that is dated 2009, wherein the appraisal training program for department employees was recognized to require a 3-year duration to complete this requirement. This is a realistic and attainable goal. The department currently has 1 licensed appraiser who has agreed to conduct the training. His name is Guy Lambers, and he is an excellent trainer and appraiser. I've been in the appraisal section for over 3 years, and over this 3-year period, I've accumulated a total of 100 hours. This is far below the 3,000 hours required as an objective for the training. After having been in the appraisal section for this time, I believe that 1,000 to 1,500 hours a year is again a realistic and attainable goal. But it has never been established or formally provided to the employees or to the union. This is no longer just about me. There are others who are in or were in or will be in the appraisal section in the future. For it to work and it to be a productive use and not a wasteful use of department resources, it has to be in writing, it has to be monitored, and it has to be updated as necessary. And it needs the full support of department management. We appreciate people like Gary Wong and Faye Strong who have supported establishing this plan, and I want to thank them formally. My management supports the establishment of the plan, but unfortunately the plan has not, and the mechanism for carrying it out have never been created. I respectfully ask that this board recommend that DWP Real Estate Business Unit establish the aforementioned training plan and that it be put in writing and monitored and updated and established for the written plan, and for this written plan to be provided to the union, the department employees within a reasonable time frame. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comments or questions from commissioners? Is there a motion to approve the item which would deny the grievance?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Hearing no objections, item passes. Item 46 is also a grievance. Is a grievance?
Yes, we have a card. Mr. Kurt Shermer.
Please come forward. Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Kurt Shermer, and I filed the grievance that you are now deciding upon. And in the report and recommendation of the Personnel Relations Committee, it states that among the remedies sought by the grievant are to retime the meter reading routes so they are fair and reasonable and accurately reflect the actual time that it takes to drive the distances. I want to make it perfectly clear that this grievance was never about the route times. This grievance was always about the drive times. I grieved the fact that we are not given anywhere near the actual amount of time that it takes to drive to and from our work location in the field. The drive times that we are given were created 25 years ago, and within the past 25 years, there has definitely been an increase in traffic that greatly increases, not just a little bit, but greatly increases the amount of time that it takes us to drive to and from our work locations in the field. What I want is I just want management to just retime the amount it takes to actually drive these distances so we can have an actual fair amount of time. I'm only asking for fairness. I'm not asking for anything unreasonable. I just want management to give us a fair amount of time to drive to and from the field so I don't have to make up for that time in my break time or lunch time because everything else is timed and there's nowhere to pull that time out from. And so when I get to the office, sometimes I finish my route on time and then I get back to the office late and then I'm told they're not going to pay me overtime because I'm supposed to be in by 3:45. I just want fairness. So I'm asking that the commission deny the recommendation of the Personnel Relations Committee to deny this grievance. If that made any sense.
Yes, we understand. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments from commissioners?
I do have a question of the department. When was the drive times last calculated?
As I sit here,
when were the drive times last?
I'm not sure. There's been Craig Norby, I think, is here. They could give us some update on this. There's also some route optimization work that's being done as well.
Good morning, Commissioners. Greg Hornsby from Customer Service.
Morning.
It has been a number of years since the route times were audited. We are also in the process of employing a new system to calculate not only our route time but also our drive times as part of the SysCom project. So we are addressing Mr. Shermer's concerns. We employ currently 142 meter readers, all of which are able to make it to the field, complete the work, and back within the allotted time.
But just so we're clear, you said a number of years. Is that 20 years, 30 years? When was the last time?
I don't have,
roughly. Is it five?
at least a decade.
So it's been a long time. And when do we expect to recalculate the time?
We are looking to put in on a new route smart product around the end of July, fairly soon.
That answers that question.
Mr. Noonan?
Move to approve the item.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No objections. Item 46 is approved. Item 40.
I do have one
We do
speaker
have
card.
would the speaker prefer to hear the presentation, or would you rather make your comments first on item 40? Okay, well then you can hear the presentation. Okay.
Item 40 is our review of the EIR for the Owens Lake Dust Mitigation Project. Just as a clarification, we're not asking for an action by the board today. This is a fairly complex matter, and although moving forward on it is important, there is a timeliness issue in terms of some regulatory compliance on it. It's also a complicated matter that I think warrants some attention. And as a result, today what we'd like to do is give a presentation. I'd like to have Chuck Holloway give an overview of the plans, how we came about, just giving a little bit of context for what Phase 7A dust mitigation project is, what the issues are that have required some changes in schedule with respect to this mitigation phase on Owens Lake, and the context of the EIR, and then the ultimate upcoming discussion and decision that we would be anticipating that would come at our June 4th meeting. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Chuck.
Hi, I'm Chuck Holloway. I manage the Environmental Assessment Group
and responsible for CEQA compliance for the department. And this is basically, we've had to do a number of phases for dust control on the lake, and I'll try to go through this real quickly. We were ordered to do what we called the Phase 7 dust control, and as part of that, we were trying to get away from some of the high water use dust control measures. And so a part of that, about 3 square miles, we had proposed using what has been called moat and row. It was a series of earthen rows, almost like tillage, with these deep moats. And the idea was the wind would blow across these, break up, and control dust. Great Basin Air Pollution Control District prepared the environmental impact report for the Phase 7, and we did an addendum to that, which presented the board for the 7A. State Lands, when we went to get the lease for the Phase 7, they granted it for most of the Phase 7, or for all of Phase 7 except for the mountain row, which was approximately 3 square miles. And so we went ahead and constructed the majority of Phase 7, and we've had to go back and redesign and reevaluate the 7A. Great Basin, as I said, prepared the EIR. They conducted all of the resource surveys, including cultural resources and biology and stuff. And during the cultural resource surveys, their consultant had identified a handful of potentially significant cultural resource sites. Phase 7A, let me jump through here and cut out some of this stuff, is 3.1 square miles of over 6 dust control areas, and then we've included 3.4 square miles of existing dust control areas that used a lot of water, and there were 7 of them, and they're going to transition because some of these new dust control areas, there's not much you can do except use water, and so we're taking some of the water from the existing dust control areas and going to move it to the 7A, and then we're going to implement a mixture of dust control measures, managed vegetation, some tillage, some gravel, and some shallow flooding. There are a number of issues we've had to look at: air quality, aesthetics, biology, habitat, sensitivity, and cultural resources. The real issue for this process has really been the cultural resources, so I'm going to focus on that. The other resources, through mitigation and stuff, are below a level of significance. I want to remind you that Great Basin had conducted all of these cultural surveys. They identified, I think, 9 or 10 potentially significant sites through a pedestrian survey. And so as we move forward with constructing Phase 7, we hired a consultant to look at these and do Phase 2 studies, and they had determined that these potentially significant sites were not significant. So as we were moving forward with Phase 7A, this is some of the transition areas, and it's the red. We needed some additional buffer around the dust control areas that had not been surveyed, because what we do is when we're constructing the berms and the roads, we actually scrape the lake floor to build up these berms, and we needed to know what kind of resources were there. And so we did our biology and cultural resources there. Also, when we got our permits from State Lands to do the geotechnical work, where they're actually drilling and stuff, there was a requirement that a cultural resource monitor, was present and had the ability to redirect work or shut us down in the event cultural resources were encountered. As they were going through this, they started finding all kinds of cultural resources. In fact, we received 2 cease and desist orders from the monitor, and each time we redirected our efforts, and we realized we had to seek a Phase 2 permit to further evaluate these sites. And I think it might be important for me just to briefly explain the process when you're looking for cultural resources, so you can understand maybe the delays in implementing this process as we move forward towards resolution and project approval. A Phase 1 survey requires a non-objection letter from the landowner. In this case, it's State Lands Commission, and it's basically a pedestrian survey. And then you're looking at artifacts on the ground, and from that you might be able to determine if there is a site, or if the things that you're finding on the surface warrant further investigation to determine if there's significant sites and possibly the boundaries of the sites. Once you do that, you compile a report, submit an application. In this case, State Lands Commission, they take it to their commission, which meets every other month. And so there's some delays there, and that allows us to dig these pits and look at subsurface artifacts, and that way we can identify the sites as being significant or non-significant, and basically characterize the sites and the boundaries. There is a Phase 3 permit that you can get. The only way, if you have determined you have a significant site, is to avoid it. And if you can't avoid it, you will have a significant impact. But the way you mitigate it, and it doesn't reduce it below significance, is it's basically a big dig. And you try to find out everything you can about the site. You're sifting through all this dirt, recording the artifacts, procuring it. And so, but again, even through CEQA and all of the natural cultural resource laws and regulations, avoidance is the number way to mitigate. So we went ahead and got our non-objection letter, and we sent our crews, 26 of them, out into the field to look at all the almost 7 square miles, 6.5 square miles of site. And they identified some stuff and recorded it and all that. Now, I just want to quickly go through some of this. Several of the sites, this is an example of the density of artifacts that were found over some of these dust control areas, a large number, and these were unexpected. And so once we got these, we got our Phase 2 permits and went out, and I'm using this opportunity to show you the amount of work, because I've explained this to people I know, my wife, and they just don't get it, but it is a huge effort. It's digging these large pits and sifting through and recording what is discovered, and trying to make a determination if these sites are significant. It turns out we did 83 of these test pits. Now, we have determined that there are a number of significant sites. One of the sites was actually the site of a battlefield where soldiers from Fort Independence came and battled with the local tribes, the Lone Pine Paiutes. And then there were other sites that were villages and camps, as well as some other historical sites from early miners and stuff like that, activities. And I'll just show you an example of some of the artifacts, and it's documented in this confidential book, but there were a lot of artifacts discovered. And here's an example, a lot of different arrowheads or projectiles. There were bullets, musket balls, other kinds of bullets. There was also a lot of jewelry. We had a whole lot of beads, shells, things like that, tools. This is a large scraper for maybe skinning animals or used as a knife. A medicine bottle. This was one that everybody got real excited about. It is a figurine. It appears to be, it's made of stone, embracing maybe an infant. And another example of that. So anyway, we're going to present on June 4th the project as well as the environmental impact report for your consideration. If approved, the project would move forward in 2 phases. We had the proposed project, which was the order. Now, we had 13 dust control areas that we have to address. 9 of those have been moving forward because they did not have sensitive resources. And so design's been moving forward, but we're really waiting for project approval, and then they'll finalize design and construction. The 4 other dust control areas, we've got some additional options or alternatives. You know, there's the no project alternative, as with every project. There is the proposed project, which was the order we received from Great Basin. There is what we call, which the environmentally superior alternative is the avoidance or alternative, which avoids about 350 square or acres of where these sensitive sites are over the 4 sites. Then there's the expanded avoidance, which adds an additional about 60 acres, and so that's what they are. Now, this morning when I was putting this together, I took off my engineering hat and put on my artist hat, and one of the issues that I had in trying to communicate this information is it's confidential under federal and state law. And so I kind of wanted to do just a little rendering because I think it will help you understand what we're talking about with the avoidance and expanded avoidance. And so I did some little drawings here. And this particular one, the avoidance area, happened to be here in the center with some managed vegetation and some shallow flooding in this area. Another one of the sites would be, if we were to do this, avoid the sensitive site here, and this would all be tillage, and that's my attempt at tillage. And this third site is, obviously, this would be the sensitive site that we would propose if the environmentally superior site proposes to avoid, with gravel around the area. And then the fourth one, kind of where the battlefield was, is, and it's not really to scale, but this site is very large beyond the boundaries of this, but it would be to avoid this, and we could put gravel here. The reason we call it the environmentally superior alternative, because it protects the sensitive resources while at the same time trying to control dust on about 60 additional acres where we don't have a site. However, once we start digging and disturbing, we may find the site's a little larger than we know. The expanded avoidance alternative only applied to this site, and it would be to totally avoid it altogether. And one of the justifications for this as well is it maintains, and it seems to be an important characteristic of it, is you're retaining the setting and the characteristic of the site. This probably isn't a real important table. It talks about the difference between the original and the proposed, and I'm almost done here. But I think it's important to note that when we went out with the draft EIR, we received 16 comment letters. 5 of them were from some of the local tribes supporting the expanded alternative. We received a comment letter, a large one from Great Basin, with basically advocating that we do the Phase 3s, move forward with dust control. And I'm just summarizing some of the major issues. There were more on this. State lands, the Audubon, California Fish and Wildlife Service, they basically had some questions about the biology, the habitat suitability models we had done, air quality aesthetics, and I didn't mention, but on that one avoidance area, we had also talked about the possibility of soil binders, and they were opposed to that. The schedule, and this is my last slide, and then shows us going out, and if we get some project, and I assume when we come back in June and the EIR is certified, the project's approved, I think it's going to be maybe possibly approved or recommended that if it is approved, it also is dependent on Great Basin either concurring or modifying the order, depending on what project's approved. And then we would start with design and construction. The first phase, it would be here, and because the second phase would be, we don't even know what the project is to design and build, would be extended about another 18 months beyond that. And it's hard for me from here to tell exactly what the date is here. That's all I have. Bill Van Wagner, the project manager, is here. He can answer questions specific to the project or the schedule. I can talk about the environmental process. We do have legal counsel here. If you have questions, we had some agreements with Great Basin because we were delayed, and there was some issues associated with that. And anyway, with that, I'm done.
Questions or comments from commissioners? Keep in mind we're going to be talking about this in closed session also. So, anything for the public session?
I just for the public that may be watching or listening in, I just want to convey that I know of at least another commissioner who takes these matters as seriously as I do, and in the cultural artifacts that we've found there, that I want to say that from our perspective, this department is going to comply with state and federal law to absolutely protect those cultural artifacts that are found on the lake. And beyond that, I feel like it may not be a good idea to elaborate beyond that, but there is a strong commitment to protect those.
Do we have public comment on this?
Yes, we have one public speaker, Kathy Bancroft.
Yes, and she's been waiting patiently. Welcome, Kathy.
My name is Kathy Jefferson Bancroft, and I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Lone Pine Paiute Shoshone Reservation. And I'm going to speak at this meeting on behalf of my tribe, not only my tribe, but also the Fort Independence Tribe, Big Pine Paiute Tribe, and the Bishop Paiute Tribe have asked me to express their concerns also. I've been involved with the Owens Lake Dust Mitigation Project at some level for 11 years now, sometimes paid and sometimes not. And but I've been aware of what's been going on out there since way before that. Some of what I've seen during that time has been good, and some has been very sad. We're grateful for the decrease in dust emissions that are coming off the lake, but it's coming as a cost to the native people of the valley. The artifacts, features, and sites on the lake bed have been there for thousands of years. They're not just objects showing a way of life long gone. They're not archaeological finds for someone to treasure. The tools, house rings, thermal, hearths, ceremonial items, and the burials are who we are as a people, even today. Our ethnography lies in the geologic features of the lake bed, the valley, and the surrounding mountains. And our history is even in the trade goods and massacre sites, which are now being disturbed. I've watched these irreplaceable resources be taken and destroyed in every phase of the dust mitigation project. The artifacts and features on the lake bed have also reinforced the geomorphology, and they've showed the tendency of the shoreline to recede great distances in years of drought and come back even before outsiders came to our valley. I've witnessed these geological features with all the fossil records and all the evidence of human existence be scraped away to make the ground level and make sure there's no vegetation left that can poke through the cloth that they use to hold the gravel. The really sad part is that there was no proper recording of these items because they were destroyed by the heavy equipment and the urgent need to complete the project. I've witnessed unprofessional archaeology and the destruction of cultural resources because of the pressure of construction deadlines. Those who spoke up to defend these resources were removed from the project. There were times when everyone working on the project was told not to talk to anyone from the tribe, but we've been there every step of the way. Even though we were unable to stop the devastation, we know what happened. We also know what is going to be about to happen, what's going to be destroyed. And we know that you do not have the time or the money to properly mitigate the cultural resources in the proposed Phase 7A project. We take this very personal because That was our family who was massacred on that shoreline. My grandmother told me that story, and she knew the people who were there. Now we're being told that none of that matters. Our sacred places are not sacred to others, so they do what they want. I know I wake up every morning and I look at the same view that my family has looked at for generations. I grew up listening to the stories of my grandmother and the other elders, and these stories are all about places. What am I going to tell my grandson when there's nothing left to tell a story about? I apologize for the lack, Chuck mentioned this, the lack of detailed information in the EIR concerning the cultural resources. We have a huge problem with looters all around our area. Providing that information would only encourage the vandalism that runs rampant. One of the reasons that so many of our cultural resources remain there today is because they're not easy to access. A problem with the dust mitigation project is that it's building roads to and even through our sites, which have been relatively undisturbed for thousands of years. We're trying to create a cultural resources center on the Lone Pine Pike Shoshone Reservation. We're having to do this in order to get our artifacts returned to our valley where they belong. Artifacts that were taken during the construction. These artifacts do not belong in a museum. They belong in the place where they were found. Our museum is out there on that lake bed and throughout the valley. You cannot tear up a house ring and put it in a museum, then it's only a bunch of rocks. Protecting these cultural resources is achieved only through avoidance. And Chuck talked about the extended avoidance. And if you look at that area in real life, it looks just like the map because the ground covering is a different color. And that's why they're not finding anything there. They've also found the reason there's that straight line there because it's a berm road. And they found artifacts in the berm and on the other side. So here's one section in the middle. Do you think you're not going to find artifacts in that? So that's why it's so important it's 60 acres, I know, but it's a big lake. I'm sure we can find more places to make up for that. And an article in the Inyo Register talked about LA sitting down with the tribes in Great Basin Unified Air Pollution Control District to figure out a way to clean up the dust while protecting the cultural resources. That was a year ago and no meeting has taken place. There's much more that we would like to talk to you about because we truly believe that there's a way to mitigate the dust problem while respectfully considering our cultural resources. And thank you.
Thank you so much. This is an information item. Items will be coming back. Other thoughts or comments at this point in time? Okay.
Commissioner, can I just make a clarification? There was some discussion in the comments that this item was going to be discussed in closed session. We are not discussing item 40 in closed session.
That's right.
The EIR is a separate item.
Thank you for the clarification. Anything else on item 40?
No.
Barbara? Okay.
That was the only card.
Okay. That's it, I think. Am I missing something, Joe?
No, at this time, we will recess in a closed session, and in accordance with Government Code 54957.1, we'll report a final action.
Boardroom or here?
Your preference.
What's the preference? Let's do the boardroom then.